honestly, our first interaction with water when we were still in mommy's tummy, right? But really, I personally, I never paid much attention to it, except that I'm just drinking it. That's all I was thinking in the first 40 something years until in 2013. That's my first interaction with, with really a more insider, with a more in-depth look about water. I guess I'm just like any of the people out there. To me, back then, before 2013, water is just in the glass. It's just transparent. It's odorless. Sometimes it even tastes awful. I'm talking about awful. I would rather prefer, Coca-Cola, juices, other thing over that transparent thing because it's so bland. It's so tasteless. Sometimes it just tastes weird. And it's
Mm.
totally not cool to drink it, right? But not what happened was that around 2014, I was blessed. I was blessed with a disease. I was blessed with something called salivary gland tumor. And that was the day that I start to realize that there's more to health and well-being than just going to see the doctor. I still remember that day I was told that I have something called salivary gland tumor. I was saying to the doctor, what are you talking about? I've never heard about salivary gland tumor. We even have something called salivary gland. What exactly is that, right?
I know,
Because
right?
okay, I know tumor, Oshi. Like tumor is something that I know eventually is going to evolve into
Mhm.
cancer once
Mhm.
our immunity and metabolism drop. But salivary gland, I've never heard about that thing before 2014. I'm not sure about your audience out there. But nevertheless, I was told that I'm sick anyways. I was given that little pill, like most of people would when you go and see a doctor, that's called steroid. So I had that, and that made me super weak to the point that I need to lay on the bed, and I couldn't even move, and I was peeing on bed. Imagine this. At late 30s, I'm peeing on bed.
Yes,
That's
I
pretty
was
bad,
just
isn't
gonna
it?
ask you about the age thing, which I think we were way beyond that we can disclose
Yeah.
that easily on to the
Yeah.
public, that we both were in our 30s when we have endured something that I
Hmm.
am personally grateful for, that I have died on a piece of walnut. And a lot of people
Mm.
say to me, wow, right? So in our 30s, not guys in our 60s or 70s or 80s, we're in our 30s enduring these crazy health issues, which I really never have had any problems prior to my issues. Did you have any health problems prior to being diagnosed? So,
Not at all. And the whole thing is that, like, for me, I thought that, hey, come on, late 30s, that's the age that I'm the most mobile. I have the most energy. That's the time that I'm fighting for my career. I'm building my career. So therefore I can retire early, right? But I was blessed with a disease. Today, when I saw it back then, it was like, it's horrible, it's a nightmare, it's actually the whole sky collapsed. But now when I'm seeing back, it's actually a blessing
yeah.
because that was a wake up call and asked me to look otherwise.
Mm.
Sometimes I guess you and I learn in a hard way just that is usually a message was sent to us for a reason, for us as a wake up call. So I believe that was the
Yeah.
case back then that I was trying to strive and figure out, okay, is that steroid the only option I have? To fix myself from what so-called salivary gland tumor. Did I need to lay on the bed and pee on the bed the whole time for the remainder of my life? Is that it? Like Oshi, whenever we thought about to ourselves, is that it? That was really not just it. It was really a message to us saying that we should think otherwise. That was actually a wake up call for me to
Mm.
look for natural healing, for me to look for okay, what else can I do aside from medication, aside from the traditional medicine, aside from that. And then I recall a book called Killing Cancer Not People, which is my favorite book.
Mm.
I'm sure that that's one of the books that you came across to told us we should look for otherwise. So that was the book that I recall. I read the book. I recall a chapter. It in particular it dedicated to water. So that was the day I started to think, okay, it kind of makes sense if today, not just medication, not just nutrient, what if I also look into water? That was the day that I start to recall about that book. I start to look into the water, okay, the water. And that's when I start to figure out, okay, what if I change the water that I'm drinking? Is it going to affect me, effectively, I call?
Mm,
So that was how my first encounter with proper water or with right hydration,
mm.
start, Oshi. So that was basically how it all started, to answer your question.
That's amazing. And just if I think about it when I'm listening to you, that when we go to certain places in the globe, well, unfortunately today we're not traveling a lot, but usually, then we are at a waterfall or we're at this beautiful setting in nature, whether some travels to Costa Rica or whatever else, right? Then we have the feeling of this special thing about that water, but eventually in our conscious mind, that all goes washes out, so to speak. And then when we come home, even though we feel recharged after a vacation, interestingly speaking, right? We're never really thinking what the charge is, what what really gave us that additional energy and boost. And so what I really want to ask you is, how is water in nature, different from the best waters we could kind of get our hands on to here in our real 3D lives in the cities we live in, right? Like Toronto, Vancouver, beautiful mountains, nature, but we're not at the Himalayas and the high mountains, and we're not at the glaciers. So what's the difference in the water we get, and why is that so critical for us?
This is, this is an interesting question, Oshi. Super interesting. The reason I'm saying it's super interesting is that why, like at our time right now, and our in 2020 right now, why are we asking the question, what kind of water should we be drinking? Like the thing is that when we look back to our ancestors, to the generation, I'm talking about hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, what kind of water were they drinking? What kind of water were they hydrating? Weren't they just basically drinking the water from the mountain floor, from the river, or even from the well, in their in the farm that they are farming? But the whole thing is that in the past 100 years, our our understanding of water evolved hugely, because we thought that whatever that's in the bottle is better than the natural water. Whatever that actually have purified with nothing in it is better than the natural water. Reason being is that it's because if you will recall, around hundreds of years ago, there was industrial revolution after World War II,
Yeah.
and the whole thing is that the water became not the water anymore. We as a human being, right now, if today you're conscious about your health, you know that you should be eating natural food. The most nature it is, the better it is. How about water? How is water different? It's also a natural substance,
So
right,
important
Oshi?
that I loved on your website when you have said that hydration is part of nutrition, but nobody ever talks about it. And when it comes to foods, people understand about the natural way of eating, or organic, or not genetically modified, or close to source, or being local, or being seasonal. But when it comes to hydration, it's like boom, like whoosh, out the door it goes. Yet 75%, as we know, of our body and some of our organs are 80+%, some are 90+% water. So what exactly, how do we not do justice by ourselves by totally ignoring hydration as part of nutrition? And then my other idea was, as you're mentioning, that I used to be a Dasani water when I was kind of out and about, and I kind of hated it. I was not a carbonated pop drinker at all. But when I did have to go to something other than coffee in my crazy business days, in those days, I went to Dasani, and it never tasted good. Like I remember it even. It's like half of the bottle is being thrown away. How many of those bottles people actually throw away, and they're on the curbside or by the garbage bins, and they just toss half of it out, right? Especially when it got nice and warm and, you know, in the heat in the summer and all those kinds of gross things. So why do people think that that water is somehow better?
I I love this question. So I'm not sure how naked can I be in terms of answering that question with the audience. But if okay, if I can be, you know, totally naked, totally telling you the truth, because because through the marketing campaign, okay, through the marketing campaign of those water, people are being conditioned. Let's use the term condition, okay?
Yeah.
If we read the label properly for designing for Aquafina, you understand that they actually owned by Coca-Cola. They're actually owned by Pepsi, okay? And if we look into numbers, this is a number game. This is a business game. This is all about money. Put it that way. No different than the vaccine of pharmaceutical company. Okay, side note. But the whole thing, but the whole thing is that understand that if we look into their revenue as of this moment right now, look into the Coca-Cola, look into Pepsi, the biggest revenue of the biggest revenue from the beverage market that bring into those two companies are actually water and flavored water.
So
Water and flavored
interesting.
water.
And for you
Yep.
guys at this community here at Wellness Wave Creations, which you can tell we are the wave creators here in the wellness industry, I will actually post you guys the video about the bottled water industry. Sorry, bottled water industry, but the video is very available and very on YouTube, and I'm going to share it with you so that that kind of brings that picture to you, what it costs for the whole world in pollution, environmental damage, and a bunch of other things to bring you that thing in the bottle. And please tell my audience here, Christina, what exactly that is when they process this water. What is it? So that people
Okay.
understand.
Okay. Now, guys, don't get me wrong. Am I a non-supporter of bottled water? I'm I'm a supporter of particular the natural mineral water. I'm not a supporter of processed water. Here's understanding. If today you would not choose GMO food, if today you are going to choose organic food, if today you're going to choose non-GMO food, you're going to choose non-processed food, why would you choose processed water? Why would you choose water that is actually not natural enough for us to digest into our body? So for most of the water, in particular in North America, in Europe is a total different. You and I can talk about that in other segment,
Yeah.
Oshi. So in North America in particular, I can tell you that 80% of the bottled water available in the market right now, they're either tap water, because there's no restrict label or there's no restrict legislation to label the water. How many of you actually read the label on the bottled water? Never, right?
And you know what happens when you're
The
above
tap water.
40? When you're above 40, you need reading glasses. I'm just saying, you guys, that you can't even read it. You have no chance on earth to read anything on a bottle, at least not in my world. Like I can see, even with the reading glasses, it's a challenge. So they know that we're not going to really bother reading it, right?
Hmm.
We know
Yes,
that the label
exactly.
is on it, so we figure, okay, it's got a label, right?
and and you see what's inside is transparent, so how bad is it, right? So
Mhm.
that's the thinking of it. So when we look into processed water, what I meant by processed water, meaning that there's no natural mineral contents in it, guys, we have to understand one thing. Our body is actually built for natural mineral water, preferably freshly from a natural source,
Yeah.
preferably from a natural source, preferably you harvest it yourself from a living stream water, so you get the ions in it, you get the minerals in it, and you get the hydrogen in it, you get the negative charge in it. Unfortunately, in North America right now, our tap has been polluted. That's why they put chlorine in it. That's why in Vancouver, in the West Coast, there's sodium ash in it, for the fact that just to make sure that it's basically is disinfects. There's no bacteria in it because nobody wants to see waterborne disease, right? Oshi, do you know that like every minute there's actually one person die because of waterborne disease in our world right now?
Wow. No.
So so therefore, if the water is being polluted with disease or with bacteria, there's a higher chance that person will die. That's why our government is doing so good for us by putting in something to disinfect the water. So there's no bacteria in it. There's less chance of waterborne disease in it,
I'm
right?
glad you brought that to light, that we understand that the government does so good by us by sanitizing the water, as opposed to some other parts of the world where unfortunately they don't have the infrastructure that we're being provided, right? So we
Right.
recognize that difference, but then what happens after that with the water?
So then so now you're getting the a little safe water, right? Clean, safe water, quote
Mm,
unquote, clean and safe
mm,
water.
yeah.
Okay, by law. So, but you and I know that everybody know that there's still things in it that legally is acceptable, be it pharmaceutical product, be it rust, be it metals, those are acceptable by law. So therefore, water purification company was trying to invent something to help you to remove those bad stuff.
Mm,
But currently, there are not many water system out there that can actually help you to remove the bad stuff by keeping the good stuff. Put it that way.
yeah.
So the easy fix is that let's remove everything from the water and process it such that there's no more things in it, including the natural minerals. So that becomes the easy fix, and that becomes seems to become the solution. That's why in the bottled water company you will see water label with a small fine print telling you that small fine print, guys, make sure that you have your reading glass, saying that made with reverse osmosis system,
That's
made
right.
by distillation. And those things are actually what I call processed water
Mm.
without the minerals in it. So those one are actually acid because there's no minerals in it. Don't worry, you're not going to die. Don't worry, in case you're wondering, right, Oshi?
Right, of course.
You're not going to die.
Of course, because we still have some sort of a 17% hydration from those products. But please, people, I want to tell you here in the community that you need to know, and those of you that have been part of my community do know that I have restored my health and my homeostasis after an ordeal of investment of money and doctor's offices and naturopath and all that kind of jazz that I've gone through, and nobody knew what to do with me until I found electrolyzed reduced water, which is not necessarily a sexy name, but that's just what it is, because it's electrolyzed and it's reduced and it's kind of microclustered, which we can talk about another time. But basically, my question to you as a water sommelier, and the only one in Canada at that, is that is it sufficient just to have filtered water on its own to maintain that 75 to 80% of our system?
Is it sufficient? The question is that what is it sustainable? Let's put it that way. Let's rephrase it. Is it sustainable to have something what we call filtered processed water to keep us hydrated? It's sustainable. Okay, we are not going to die by just drinking that water every day. But here's the big but, quote unquote. Is it going to sustain our health? Or is it
Mhm.
going to sustain our well-being? Is it going to sustain our immunity? Those are other questions that we need to consider.
Contributing
We
to
as
longevity, right? Because I mean, I'm sure of it. Because look, I've got the people in the argument is as follows. But we do live much longer than before. So, but it's so much better. But how, you guys, when I speak to all sorts of people, and 45 to 50 to 60 to 70%, and depending on which country you speak to people, are on medication for the last 20, 30, 40 years of their lives. So how do we want to have that longevity, right? And how can we help it with one simple element, simple, quote unquote, and how that contributes to our long-term wellness and health is definitely a matter of perspective. And that's why I have you here on this channel. And I'm really hoping Christina and I have had a previous brief conversation that we would have a series of these interviews and we can approach this subject matter of water from very different angles at each interview. I do really believe that it's underestimated. I do really believe that you have to all recognize that it's part of your nutrition. It is so critical. So tell me, what happens after your diagnosis and when you find electrolytes reduced water, Christina?
Well, after I find it, it actually helped me to shrink down my tumors significantly. I'm talking about significantly to the point that it was 5 centimeters before, just in a few weeks' time, by changing diet, by changing energy, by changing my habit and my water. It helped me to shrink it down into, I'm talking about 3 millimeter. So that, like people call it, is that magic? No, it's not magic, because our immunity, our defense is magic. The question is that when we find the right water that can actually hydrate our cells is going to help us to do the better defense and to flush what's unnecessary. Those unnecessary is what actually build up the inflammation, creating the tumor in my body. So long story short, is basically I'm taking a more effective approach by changing the 75% of my body, which is the water. And that actually is when my journey started to want to look further about what exactly is this H2O, how come it makes more sense to have a better water versus just focusing on better food or better nutrients.
You guys know all the little pen drives that you put into the computer? Anybody? Of course, everybody knows them. And so when we put them into the computer in that little slot, so to speak, and it doesn't upload, what happens? I feel the very same way with the water. So it's all in the structure that makes the big difference in these waters, you guys. Tonight, by the way, for those of you that are part of my VIP event this evening at 7 p.m., you will have the privy to learn as to how this is a different structured water. As much as our cellular water, right, Christina? It's not like that water. It's not structured that way. It's like the round hole with the square peg kind of issue. It does not connect the same way when both, the system water as well as whatever you put in are similarly structured, so they are absolutely able to match up and absorb. Correct? Do I say that right?
Yep, absolutely.
So what would you tell people about the difference between filtration and ionization?
Well, filtration is basically, okay,
simply put.
Okay, very simple. Let's understand how filtration works and why filtration occurs. Filtration was first invented by studying the earth. How the different layer of earth actually help us to remove different substance in the water. So that's basically layers, okay? When you're talking about ionization, it's two different things. Ionization, we need to be super careful. Why would I say so? It's because you need to be super cautious about the system or the ionizer you have. Does it have a quality filter? Once it has a quality filter, and then it's going to go through something what we call mimicking thunderstorm. Mimicking a thunderstorm to ionize, to supercharge the water. Because by norm, our water is supposed to be charged with electricity when it's moving, right? So ionization is basically when you have a good quality water filter and then you thunderstorm shocking the water, electrify the water. And through that proper electrification, it's going to give the proper structure that can communicate with our cells for proper hydration.
So good. I love it.
In a simple term, but yet like,
yeah,
but
right?
long explanation.
Okay, so we guys can talk about how we create this electrical charge and this thunderstorm Christina is talking about that's been so beneficial to our wellness, and so that it allows our body to function at its most optimal level as far as that 70–80% concerns. Obviously, you've got all the other stuff, which is your beautiful food, your nutrients, your supplements, your vitamins, your whatever you do otherwise. How are you going to successfully upload that? So I love that you have said it's the communication between the body and that substance, how that makes the big difference. Huh? Isn't that so cool? So Christina, just because of our time today, and I know you have another meeting to go to, I will wrap up this interview. And this was only just the first one. We will keep picking Christina's brains as long as she allows. Oh, my computer almost goes in a minute. So we will have other ones scheduled with Christina. Again, she's the only water sommelier, basically an expert in water. So I can't wait to see you here on the channel again soon. Hopefully we can do something in January 2021. And thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your wisdom with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Make sure they, even though it's wintertime, make sure everybody hydrated properly. You know.
Oh yes, for sure. Thank you, Christina. Can't wait to see you soon.
See you soon. You
keep
take care.
hydrated, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.